Chapter 16, Streets of Chaos. Mike stepped off the zoo's outer service road and into a city that no longer felt like it belonged to people. It was just past 2200. Behind him, the electronic gates stood open under flickering emergency lights. They weren't bent. They weren't forced. They hadn't been torn apart by claws or weight. They had simply unlocked. The system override had done its work quietly, cleanly. The zoo hadn't been broken open. It had been told to open, and it had obeyed. Mike hadn't known. When he'd started his rounds earlier that evening, everything had looked routine. Control panels green, containment indicators steady, electronic locks are secure. Just another night check before the night begins and his shift. He replayed it now in his head, trying to see the moment he missed. There hadn't been one. Bryce Kensington and his friends had overridden the system fast, probably laughing while they did it, never imagining what open all really meant. Now the streets carried the consequence. Mike adjusted the strap of his tranquilizer rifle and moved forward, boots splashing through shallow rainwater gathered in the cracked pavement. The city smelled wrong. Smoke from electrical fires drifted low between buildings. Gasoline hung in the air, wet asphalt, broken insulation. And beneath all of it, thick and unmistakable, was the scent of animals that should have been separated from this world by steel and glass. A car alarm screamed somewhere down the block, then cut off abruptly as if something heavy had crushed the hood. He slowed. The night felt stretched thin. Then it came, a roar, not distant, not contained, not echoing against enclosure walls. It tore across the street like a living thing. Mike felt it in his chest before he processed the sound. It vibrated through his bones. That wasn't territorial noise inside a habitat. That was a declaration. He turned toward the intersection ahead. There is a difference between seeing a lion behind reinforced glass and seeing one standing freely in your world. The male lion moved between abandoned vehicles with slow precision. His mane looked darker in the emergency lights, heavy around his shoulders, head low, muscles shifting beneath gold fur, tail flicking in controlled arcs. He wasn't panicked. He was orienting himself. This was unfamiliar territory, but territory all the same. Mike lowered to one knee, steadying his breathing. Urban darting required patience. Angles were unpredictable, surfaces could deflect. A clean muscle shot was everything. He lined up the shoulder, exhaled, squeezed, the dart struck. The lion reacted instantly, spinning with a roar that filled the street. Not pain, not fear, anger. It bounded over the hood of a car, its claws scraping metal, and disappeared down a side street in 3 powerful strides. Easy, Mike whispered to himself. The sedative would take several minutes. Too long in an open environment. He rose carefully and followed at a controlled pace. Never chase. Pressure triggers flight. Flight triggers distance. Distance leads to civilians. A crash erupted 2 blocks away, heavier than the lion. Mike pivoted toward it and felt something cold settle in his stomach. The grizzly bear burst through the front of a convenience store, glass spraying outward in glittering shards. The frame buckled under its weight. It wasn't hunting. It wasn't targeting anyone. It was overwhelmed. Noise. Light and movement. Confusion in a predator that size was lethal. Frackin' hell, Mike muttered under his breath. He checked his remaining loaded darts. He couldn't drop everything at once. The lion had been darted first. The bear was active and destructive. Prioritize. He moved closer but kept a distance, scanning for civilians. The store appeared empty. Shelves overturned. No bodies visible. Thank God. He loaded a heavier dart and steadied himself behind the frame of a delivery truck. The bear lumbered back into the street, snout dusted in candy wrappers and streaked with small cuts from glass. It huffed, nostrils flaring, trying to process this alien terrain. Mike fired. The dart was embedded high in the shoulder muscle. The bear roared and surged forward, not charging him directly but barreling across the road in blind reaction. A parked motorcycle flipped under its bulk like plastic. Mike ducked lower. Run it out, he murmured. The sedative had to work. Above him, a sudden wave of chattering broke the tension. He looked up. Monkeys scrambled across power lines and streetlights, tails whipping as they leapt between poles. One landed on a traffic signal and shook it violently. Another dropped onto the roof of a taxi and sprang off again. They were smaller, quicker, and more erratic. They would cause chaos but not immediate fatalities. He couldn't split focus yet. Then came the sound that made his shoulders tighten again. Laughter, high and wrong. Hyenas emerged from an alley mouth, 4 of them, shoulders rolling in eerie coordination. Their eyes caught the emergency lights and flashed pale. They tested the air, moving together. If he darted one, the others would scatter unpredictably. Subway entrances, apartment buildings, underground garages. He stayed perfectly still. After a long moment, a distant siren shifted pitch and direction. The hyenas startled as one unit and melted back into the alley shadows. Mike exhaled slowly. His radio crackled uselessly at his hip. Static swallowed any attempt at contact. The system override had fried internal zoo communications, and city emergency channels were flooded. He was functionally alone. A low tremor passed through the pavement beneath his boots. Slow, heavy, and measured. The bull elephant stepped into view at the far intersection, enormous even against the skyline. Its ears were tight against its head, trunk lifted to scent the air. A food cart lay flattened behind it. Mike didn't lift his rifle. He didn't have the dosage to safely sedate a bull that size alone. The margin between sedation and respiratory failure was razor thin. The elephant paused. Its eyes found him. They held each other's gaze across the intersection, man and memory of wilderness in the wrong place. "You're not my fight tonight," Mike said quietly. The elephant shifted course toward the river, moving with ponderous inevitability. He let it go. Heavy capture team required, if one ever arrived. A sharp snarl snapped his attention left. 6 wolves moved along the edge of a small park, bodies low, movements synchronized. They were adapting quickly, using a cover, watching him, urban predators in hours. He steadied his rifle and fired at the lead wolf. The dart struck clean. The wolf yelped, startled but not immediately collapsing. The pack fanned outward in a loose semicircle, unsure whether to advance or retreat. Mike backed away slowly, never turning his back, never breaking eye contact. Minutes stretched. The sedative took hold. The lead wolf staggered, legs faltering before it dropped onto its side in the grass. The others retreated deeper into the tree line. Mike leaned briefly against a brick wall once they were gone. His chest heaved harder than he wanted to admit. Sweat cooled against his neck in the damp night air. He had been moving for nearly 2 hours. Adrenaline was burning through him faster than sleep deprivation ever had. Down the street, he saw the lion again. The dart had done its work. The massive cat slowed mid-stride, muscles misfiring, then lowered heavily onto the pavement between 2 abandoned cars. It tried to rise once, failed, then stilled. "One," Mike whispered. Sirens were closer now, but still not here. Then another roar rolled across the skyline. Different, deeper in tone. "Tiger." Mike turned toward 5th Avenue. The tiger moved with eerie confidence down the wide street, striped body fluid beneath the emergency glow. Unlike the lion, this one looked alert, calculating, scanning storefront reflections. It wasn't confused. The tiger was thinking. Mike positioned himself carefully, bracing against a light pole for stability. He fired. The dart struck high in the shoulder. The tiger spun with a snarl that echoed off marble and glass, then bounded up the steps of a museum entrance, claws scraping stone. Mike followed at a distance, his heart pounding harder now. Behind him, a scream tore through the night, then cut off. Shock, not death. He forced himself not to turn. Focus saves lives. The tiger paced along the museum landing for several tense seconds, agitation building as the sedative began to circulate. Its movements grew uneven. A hind leg faltered. It shook its head violently as if trying to dislodge the fog creeping into its muscles. "Easy," Mike murmured, though he knew it couldn't hear him. At 22:07, the tiger staggered sideways, claws scraping marble, and collapsed heavily against the museum doors. Mike lowered the rifle slowly. 2 apex predators were sedated. The bear would drop soon if the dosage held. 1 wolf down. Others dispersed, hyenas roaming. Monkeys are scattered throughout the infrastructure, an elephant heading toward open water, snakes somewhere in the dark. And that didn't account for leopards, smaller cats, reptiles, or whatever else had slipped into storm drains and basements. He turned in a slow circle. Emergency lights pulsed against glass towers. Smoke drifted between rooftops. The zoo gates glowed faintly in the distance, open like a wound. Bryce had wanted spectacles. He had unlocked extinction-scale chaos instead. Mike swallowed hard. He wasn't a hero standing in dramatic light. He was a tired man with limited darts and no backup. Claire and Liam were underground by now. He hoped when he last saw them, they were heading out of the zoo, and he knew Claire enough that she would take Liam home. Stay down there, he thought, and stay quiet. He checked his remaining tranquilizer count, low. Another distant roar rolled across the skyline, not this tiger. Another. He didn't know yet that one of them had taken the subway tunnels. He lifted the rifle back onto his shoulder. "Big cats first," he said to the empty street. Then he stepped forward again. The city breathed around him, feral, wounded, and wide awake. And Mike Anders walked straight back into it.